and welcome to Razz Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is a live-action adaptation of the classic Disney film, which is a story about a beautiful young girl who falls in love with a cursed monster, giving us a very romantic story about Stockholm Syndrome. But in all seriousness, Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite animated Disney films, and it's not just childhood nostalgia. This film is the only animated feature ever to be nominated for Best Film at the 1991 Oscars. So it's a big deal, and this movie had huge shoes to fill. And to be honest, I found Beauty and the Beast to be an adequate adaptation. It was pretty good, but it wasn't as amazing as I wanted it to be. I felt like it had a few hits and misses. So let's start by talking about the hits with my top 3 things that I liked about Beauty and the Beast. Number 3, the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this film was made by the same composer who did the music for the original animated feature, and I thought that the music was really beautiful. I really enjoyed listening to the original songs, and they had a few extra songs that were nice, some from the Broadway adaptation and some completely new, I believe. I loved the Bonjour number at the beginning of the film. I really liked Be My Guest, and my favorite number is definitely Kill the Beast. I thought that the choir sounded really good, the singing was really good, and the music overall in the film was really nice and nostalgic and brought back the same feeling and the same kind of magic that I had from the original film. The number 2 thing I liked about Beauty and the Beast was Gaston. So Gaston, played by Luke Evans, is our villain in this film. He's in love and he kind of forcibly pursues her. He's this egotistical, manly, overpowering, overbearing person. And I thought that his adaptation from animation to live action was absolutely brilliant. He's a little different from his animation counterpart, which was a little bit over-the-top villain, mustache-twirling bad guy, where here he had a little bit more nuance and a little bit more layers to him, which I really enjoyed. I really like that Gaston does not start off from the beginning of the film being completely evil. He's actually a little bit charming and a little bit harmless, but as the film develops, he starts becoming more and more bad and his true colors start to show, and I felt like that gave him a nice arc. They also changed the relationship between Gaston and LeFou, his sidekick, played by Josh Gad, and I found the change to be very interesting. They made the relationship between them a little bit more modern, where LeFou actually has a crush on Gaston, which I thought was very interesting and a definite improvement on the original duo from the animated feature. The number 1 thing I liked about Beauty and the Beast was the Beast. So for this movie to work, obviously the leads had to work as well, and for me the Beast worked really well. I really liked the performance by Dan Stevens. I thought he did amazing, and I also liked how the Beast looked, and they also made him a little bit more mature and they gave him more layers as a character. In the original animated feature, when the Beast is turned, he's still a child, so in the film he turns into this spoiled, immature, anger tantrumy brat, really, and then he learns to become more mature and becomes actually a better person through Belle's help and his relationship with her. However, here when the Beast is turned, he's actually an adult, so he's well educated and he's also more complicated as a person, and I really found that enjoyable. And it also makes sense that Belle would get attracted to him and she would actually like him, so you kind of buy her attraction to him and their developing relationship in the film. Now let's move on to what I found to be misses in this adaptation as I talk about the top 3 things I didn't like about Beauty and the Beast. Number 3, the CGI. I didn't personally really like how the film looked. The CGI was good, but it's not as amazing as things we've seen before, like The Jungle Book or something like Planet of the Apes. The bar has been raised really high in terms of visual effects, and I felt sometimes that things looked a little fake. I mean, some elements of the production design were beautiful and gorgeous, but there are other times where it looked like a set, it looked fake, it looked like it was computer generated, and it didn't really work for me and took me out of the film. I never felt engrossed in the film because of how visually it looked. Like, for example, the village where she comes from really looked like a set. I did not buy it at all. It didn't feel like a provincial village in the middle of France, in the middle of the countryside. Everything looked kind of cardboardy and cartoony. The CGI on the Beast also didn't work that well for me. The design of his face and his eyes looked really well, but his hair looked a little fake, and I'm kind of now used to seeing better hair in special effects these days. So in the movie, you have all these characters that were servants for the Beast turned into furniture just like they are in the animated feature. And you have these characters played by amazing actors. You have Lumiere being played by Ewan McGregor, Cogsworth being played by Ian McKellen, and Mrs. Potts being by Emma Thompson. These are big name actors and they are huge personalities on screen. However, I felt their personalities did not pop out in the film because they were kind of contained in the design and shape of the furniture items. They kind of looked like they were little CGI pieces of furniture. In the animated feature, when you see their facial expressions, they look a little cartoonish, yes, but they popped out as characters and you connected with them more. I didn't even notice that Ian McKellen was playing Cogsworth until the end of the film. That's how contained he was in the film, and I didn't feel like he translated or came to life as much as I would have liked him to, and that applies to all the other characters as well. The number 2 thing I didn't like about Beauty and the Beast was the editing. The editing was really off in the film, and I think it did it a huge disservice. And this is not something that I expect everybody else to notice, but it was a little bit off, especially in action scenes where there'd be too much cutting. Like, for example, when the attacks happened with the wolves, I didn't know where the wolves were coming in from, who's fighting from where, what's happening with what. It was so overcut that it just felt off, and the pacing also felt off. And sometimes a lot of the scenes didn't have a good flow. A lot of interactions between characters didn't really translate well. This really hurt the relationship between Belle and her father. A lot of times when we should be staying on a shot that has a certain reaction, we cut out of it so you don't feel the emotional connection happen, and that's why the relationship between Belle and her father didn't translate for me at all. There's a particular scene in the village where Belle is teaching this girl how to read, and the cutting is so weird that the whole scene actually felt awkward and confusing. So all in all, I thought the film was not really well edited, and I really did not enjoy it, and it took me out of the movie, and it felt really jarring for me and uncomfortable. The number one thing I didn't like about Beauty and the Beast was Belle. When I said hit and miss, I really meant it, because this film has two leads. One of them was a hit and the other one was a complete mess. I really did not like Emma Watson as Belle. The problem is Belle is a very smart character and she knows it. So there is a danger for her being pretentious a little bit, and here I felt like she was with Emma Watson. She didn't feel down to earth to me. She felt a little bit snobbish, so it didn't work for me at all. And also she's not very emotional, so I never bought her relationship with the Beast from her side. I never got why the Beast liked her. There's something just so genuine and likable about Belle that did not translate well here with Emma Watson. And she's a terrible dancer. And the scene that suffered from that the most is their big dance scene in the big dress. That didn't work at all. It paled in comparison to the original. It's because she doesn't have that grace. She just stumbles around when she's dancing. I'm like, I mean, did no one notice this? When he's like swinging her around him, she's supposed to flow with the beautiful yellow dress, and she's just like... And it actually really stood out to me in another scene with a big dance with other people where everybody else was just flowing across the dance floor and she's in the middle going... I don't understand why Emma Watson was cast. I had my reservations about it. I was hoping I was wrong, but I wasn't wrong. She really didn't work for me, and she was a big deterrent for me enjoying this film as a whole. I would admit that maybe I'm too attached to the original animated film, and I couldn't separate myself as I watched this movie, and I kept comparing them, and there were just a lot of iconic moments that really didn't work well and paled in comparison to the original film. However, this movie did well. It ticked most of the boxes it needed to tick. Some things really worked well, some things didn't. So all in all, I'm gonna give Beauty and the Beast a 7 out of 10. So, have you seen Beauty and the Beast? Did it work for you? Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section, and as always, like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to ask me for anything you'd like me to review for you next. See ya!